Okay, we are writing linear equations. There's three forms that we're going to use the most. One of them I'm not going to ever ask you to put in that form, but you have to use it to find the other form sometimes. So we're going to talk about what we know and what we need to know. So slope-intercept form, it's y equals mx plus b. What does that give me? Well, slope and my y-intercept, right? So what does m represent? Slope. Now what does b represent? Y-intercept. Now here's my question. Because you can do all three of these forms if you have slope and an intercept, or a point, sorry. Can we write the y-intercept as a point? Yes. What do we know about the y-intercept? What's always 0? X. So we can write it as a point, 0, comma, whatever b is. Okay. Now point slope form, it gives me exactly what it says. M is still my slope in the middle, but this time it gives me a point, and it's not always going to be my y-intercept. It could be, it doesn't specify, but it can be any point. So I want you to realize the x1 comma y1 is your point. So this and this is what makes your point. Now knowing that, I want you to realize there's a minus sign in front of both of those, which means when you plug something in, it's going to look opposite. And I'll show you that in just a second so you understand what I'm saying by that. And then lastly, we have standard form. Standard form is what gives us the least, okay? But I do know that my slope is opposite A over exact B, which also can be seen as negative A over B. Now, something we haven't really talked about is that A cannot be negative. So A cannot be negative. Okay, so that's what we know and what we need to know to do all of what we're doing today. If you know those things, then you're good to go. Okay, so I want you to realize number 1, 2, and 3, I'm having you write it in all three forms because I want you to see how to find the different forms from the information. But I want you also to know that you're never gonna have to find all three forms on like one of your practice problems. I'm gonna specify which form. So it looks like a lot in your notes, but it's not that bad when you actually get to it because I'm not asking for all three forms every single time. Does that make sense? Okay, so knowing that, let's look. On number 1, again, it's asking for all three forms, but I'm gonna kind of separate them into different problems. So with slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, to write it in that form, I need to know m and I need to know b. I need to know my slope and I need to know my y-intercept. Now to write it in point slope form, I need my slope and I need to know an x1 and a y1 for a point. And then standard form is my weird one where I just need a, b, and c. So it says find the linear equation of the line with the point -1, 5 and slope of -2. Well, right away I know my slope is -2, so I can use that for those two. What else does it give me? A random point, right? Is that my y-intercept? No, because y-intercept is where x is 0 and that's not 0, but it is a random point, so I can plug this into point slope form right away because I know that this is my x1, y1. So x1 is -1, y1 is 5. And then we can plug it into our point slope form. So y minus y1 is 5 equals slope, which is -2, parentheses x minus x1, which is -1. Well, what does this become right here? A positive, because two negatives makes a positive. Now, remember when I said looks opposite? Okay, well, what kind of 5 is my y1? positive, but when we look in our formula, doesn't it look negative now? Okay, and my x1 was a negative 1, and what does it look like now? So that's what I mean when I say looks opposite. Because of those minus signs, it makes everything look opposite. Yes? Okay. So now we're good there. We have that. But we don't know our y-intercept. What I want you to realize about slope-intercept form is it's just when y is by itself. If we solve for y, we will find our y-intercept. So can I just use point slope for my slope-intercept form? Yeah, it's a simple solve. You're going to multiply by -2, move the 5, and then you're done. So it's super simple to do. So we're going to use point slope form to find our slope-intercept form. Okay? Thank you. So knowing that, I'm going to write y minus 5 equals -2 parentheses x plus 1. And we're going to solve. So like I said first, you want to make sure both sides are simplified. Y minus 5 doesn't simplify, but this side does. I can distribute that -2, correct? So -2 times x is -2x. -2 times 1 is -2. And what's my last step to get y by itself? No, not +2. We want y by itself, not x. So +5. And the -2 and +5 are like terms, so I lined it up. And I get y equals -2x plus 3. So my b is 3. And my answer is y equals -2x plus 3. So this is why point slope's important, is it helps us find slope-intercept form when we're given a random point. Okay? Now if you're given your y-intercept, then life's easy and you can do this form. It's fine. Okay? Now standard form is the one that's a little different. Okay, standard form though, we can use our slope to find a and b. However, it doesn't help us find c. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Well, I know my slope is -2, but I always want slope to be a fraction. So I just put a 1 on the bottom when there is no fraction. Don't we know that slope is opposite of a over exact b? So to go backwards, wouldn't I just find the opposite again? What's opposite of -2? And what's exact b? Well, look, I'm almost done. Okay, so I know my answer is going to have 2x plus 1y equals, well, we don't know c. That's the problem. And c doesn't tell us anything for our graphs or anything, so we have to use what we know. Well, don't we have a point? Isn't that x and y? Can I plug that in as x and y to find c? Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. So I have 2 parentheses -1 plus 1 parentheses 5. And whatever that equals is my c value. Well, y'all, from there it's straight calculator. So I have 2 times -1 plus 1 times 5, and it equals 3. So there's my answer, 2x plus y equals 3. Now I want you to realize you could write it as 2x plus 1y equals 3. Those are the same thing. You don't have to label a 1 with your letter. Any questions with that? Okay, so let's do another one. So same concept. But we have to find our slope because it doesn't give us slope. It says find the linear equation of the line with the point 2, 5 and -3, 4. Can I find slope from 2 points? Yes. Okay, so we can use the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to label my points x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 is 4 minus y1 is 5 over x2 is -3 minus x1 is 2. And I can type that in my calculator. And I get positive 1/5. So I'm going to go to these two forms first. And I know 1/5, 1/5. However, was I given my my y-intercept? No, so I have to use point slope. Now I already labeled this one x1, y1, so that's the one I'm going to use for my point. However, with point slope form, it doesn't matter which point you use. So you could have used this one and it's still right. It's just going to look different from mine. Okay, so I know, bless you, that x1 is 2 and y1 is 5. And I'm going to plug that into my formula. So y minus y1 is 5 equals m, which is my slope, parentheses x minus x1, which is 2. Now, because I don't know my y-intercept, again, we're going to use our point slope form to find our slope-intercept form. So y minus 5 equals 1/5 x minus 2. Now, we have fractions in here now, and I know those aren't our favorite, but we get to use our calculator, so it's not a big deal. So I'm going to simplify the right side, so I'm going to bring down my y minus 5. And I have 1/5 times x, which is 1/5 x. And then I have 1/5 times negative 2. And I get negative 2/5. So what do I do next? Add 5 to both sides. So plus 5 plus 5. Now, do not tell me that that is 7/5 because you're wrong, or 3/5, positive 3/5. Remember, with fractions, they have to have a common denominator. Do these have a common denominator? No. No, 2/5 plus 5, that's 5 over 1. They don't have a common denominator. So just use your calculator. Negative 2/5 plus 5 is 23/5. Okay? So I have y equals 1/5 x plus 23/5. Doesn't say anything about not being able to have fractions. So there is my equation. Okay, so let's look at standard form. So again, from 2 points, we already found our slope, and we know slope is opposite of a over b. Now these are both positive, so what's the opposite of 1? Over exact b. So I know that a cannot be negative, and I'm going to show y'all how to fix that here in a minute, but don't stress about it yet. So we have negative 1x plus 5y equals c. Again, it doesn't matter which point I use, but I'm just going to keep using that first point. So I have negative 1 times 2 plus 5 times 5 equals c, whatever that is. So I have negative 1, I don't know, plus 5 times 5, and it equals 23. Now, a is not allowed to be negative. But if I rewrite this negative 1x plus 5y equals 23, technically could I multiply both sides by negative 1? And what I do to one side, as long as I do it to the other, it's still equal. And don't two negatives make a positive? So that would become positive 1x minus 5y equals negative 23. But could you just look here and make them all opposite? Yeah, what's the opposite of negative 1? Positive 1, negative 5, negative 23. Isn't that the same thing? So anytime you have a negative a, finish finding c, and then just make them all opposite. Okay? So we have 1x minus 5y equals negative 23, or I have no idea, x minus 5y equals negative 23. Okay, we're not going to do all three forms on the bottom one just because it's the same thing over and over, but I want to show you how to find two things that will help you first. So if you look on this one, the difference is we're given a graph, yes? Okay, I can find slope from a graph, and I can find all kinds of different points from a graph. However, slope-intercept form needs my slope and my y-intercept. Y-intercept's super simple to find. What's my y-intercept here, y'all? -2. Okay, so then we have to find a slope. Well, I know that I could pick 2 points, doesn't matter which two, and find my slope. So I go down 1, 2, 3, which is -3. And I go right 1, 2, which is +2. So I know my slope is -3/2. Now, to find all three forms, haven't I just needed the slope and a point? Does it matter which point? No. So can I use B as my point? Isn't my y-intercept a point? Yeah, I can rewrite it as 0, -2, and that's all I would need to find all three forms. Does that make sense? So don't make your life hard and pick a different point for your point when you can literally use your y-intercept to make your life easy. Yeah? Cool. Okay, flip to the back when you're done writing that down. Okay, this looks like a lot, but we're not doing all three forms on these, and 5 of them are special cases, so they're super quick. Okay, so don't stress out. There is a couple things, though, I'm going to change on this. I want you on number 5, instead of it saying standard form, I want it to say slope intercept form. Okay, so reminder, parallel, what do we know about parallel lines? They never touch y. Same what? Slope. So we know it's because they have the same slope. Now perpendicular lines, what do they have? They have opposite, who remembers the fancy word? It's reciprocal. Reciprocal slopes. Okay. Now, when I say opposite reciprocal, don't let those words throw you off. Opposite just means positive versus negative. So if it was positive, now it's negative. If it was negative, now it's positive. Now, reciprocal means flip. Okay? So you're just changing the sign and flipping it. Yes? So if you look at this first one, it says parallel. Second one says perpendicular. So those are important things on these problems. So if we look at example 4, it says write the equation of a line passing through 6, 2 and parallel to this equation in standard form. So I know I'm writing it in standard form. AX plus BY equals C. So I know I need to find A, B, and C. Well, my old slope is what? What's the slope of this equation? 4/5. And it's parallel, so what would my new slope be? Huh? The same. 4/5. So I know my slope already. Yes? Because it's parallel to this with this slope. And I know a point. That's all I need to find my standard form. Well, I have to do opposite of A over B. What's the opposite of A? -4 over exact B, 5. So I've already almost done. So I know -4x plus 5y equals my C. And we're going to use our point given to us. So -4 times x is 6. Plus 5 times y is 2, and whatever that equals is my C. So it equals -14. Now, before I keep going, what's wrong with this? A is negative, so can I just make all of them opposite? Yes, so this becomes positive, this becomes negative, this becomes positive, and there is my A, B, and C, and I'm done. So 4x minus 5y equals 14. Any questions with that? Not too bad. That's more what your problems are going to look like, where you only find one form, not all three. Okay? Now the next one says, write the equation of a line passing through 3, -5, and perpendicular to 8x plus 1y equals 6 in slope-intercept form. Well, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So I need to find my slope and my y-intercept. So my old slope, well, I have to do opposite of a over b because it's in standard form, is what? -8 over what? 1. When there's no number, we can put a 1. So for my new slope, is it going to be exactly the same? No, it's perpendicular. So what's opposite of negative? Positive. And then what is it flipped? 1 over 8. So it's a positive 1/8 slope. So I already know my slope, and the only thing I need now is my y-intercept. But I'm given a random point, not my y-intercept, so what am I going to use to find that? What did we use on the front to change it to a slope-intercept form? The point slope, right? So we're going to use point slope. We're going to plug it into point slope first and solve. So y minus, what's my y1? -5 equals my slope, which is 1/8. X minus x1 is 3. Now here, 2 negatives makes a positive. And now I can solve. Now it has a fraction, but again, we can use our calculator. That shouldn't scare us. So we have y plus 5 equals 1/8 times x, which is 1/8 x. And then 1/8 times -3 is just -3/8. Now what do I do? Subtract 5. And I have y equals 1/8 x. And again, we're going to use our calculator because we don't want to make like terms, so minus 5. And that gives us -43 over 8. So what's your y-intercept? -43 over 8. It's gross. You wouldn't want to graph this, but that's your answer, so you're done. Because slope-intercept form is just when y is alone. Okay, the next one is a special case. Okay, I know it says parallel, but we're going to do parallel and perpendicular because I want to have that conversation. Okay, so it says, find an equation of a line that's parallel to the line y equals 5 and passes through -2, -3. Well, y equals 5, what is that missing? What does it not have in its equation that all the other ones have had today? There's no x. Yeah, so this is a special case, y'all. When it has one letter, it's a special case. And it's y, so this is a Hoy equation, which means it has a 0 slope. So I need, if it's parallel, that means same slope. So I need another equation that has a 0 slope. So I'm going to use another equation that's y equals with no x. Yes? Well, what point do I want it to go through? -2, -3. What's the y? -3. There's your answer. So special cases we like because they're simple, but we have to recognize that they're special cases first. Okay? Now, what's perpendicular to a horizontal line? A vertical line. Okay? So we know that Hoy is perpendicular to Vux. And vice versa. Vux is perpendicular to Hoy. So if I'm looking for perpendicular to a Hoy line, that means I'm finding a Vux line. Well, what does x equal for my point? negative 2. Like I said, we like the special cases because they're simple. Okay, the last four will literally take us 2 seconds. Okay, so it says find an equation of a vertical line through negative 1, 5. Well, vertical means vux. So I know it's going to be x equals, well, what does x equal? So y'all do example 8. I'm going to give you like 10 seconds. So hopefully you got x equals 3 because it says vertical line again, so we know it's x equals, and the x of my point was 3. Yes? Any questions with that? Simple? Okay, now it says find an equation of a horizontal line through negative 1, 5. Well, horizontal is y equals, and what does y equal? 5. So again, 10 seconds, try that one. So you should have gotten y equals 2. Any questions with those? No, we like those super simple. Yes? Cool. You have a practice. You do not have notes tomorrow, which is exciting. So you have the rest of the period today and all of the period tomorrow to finish the practice.